like so. That's the Kandy Box. Not the greatest tutorial, I know. I'm not that great at doing tutorials. But if you follow along, you should be able to do something similar. Okay. And then the next thing would be to, I guess after that, we'll skin it with plywood. We're going to put a lid on here, but that's what we're going to do. Skinning this with 1/4-inch plywood. Which I have some here. Well, making sure I'm working in a ventilated area. Open the garage door. We're going to go ahead and put some base paint on this. It's going to take several coats because it's plywood. It tends to soak up paint, but it's actually Luan, however you say it. It's a little windy. We may have to close the door. We're going to get just a coat on here. This is fluorescent paint, so that it'll show up in the black light. We'll have a series of black lights throughout this haunt. It's a little chilly out to be painting outside, but I don't want the fumes to get too bad in here, so I do have a respirator that I could put on, but with the door open, I shouldn't need it. Just going to give a light coat here so that it doesn't run, and we'll come back around it. So here we are back again with Kandy Box, our do-it-yourself jack-in-the-box automated animatronic. This is Kandy. Say hi to Kandy. She is from Evil Jay's Creepy Closet. We got her when we were at Transworld. Took her home with us. Fell in love with her. She has really cool glossy eyes. Cool purple hair. She has pigtails too, but I took them out to try not to get them too messed up. This one's already getting a bit frizzy just from handling her. So, which I'm trying not to do, but I have to do it in order to get this prop figured out exactly right, to be able to control the weight and the size of this head. It's a pretty oversized head. I have a small head anyway, but not that small. Okay, we're going to set her back here on the dismantled tree. I took my tree down, and now we're going to, I need to trim this up a little bit, and see this here, I got to trim this a little bit. This will be the top. I went ahead and painted these little panels with UV paint. These are just little 1/4-inch Luan I got from the hardware store. And I got a 2x4, two 2x4 pieces and cut them in half. These are approximately 2x2. I trimmed them up a little bit to fit on the box. The box isn't perfectly square, but it doesn't really need to be. We're going to trim out the sides next, the sides and the tops with 1x2. So any imperfections in that you won't see because it'll be hidden by the 1x2s. And those we have here on the floor. I'm going to go ahead and measure and cut them before I paint them. I've got 4 8-foot 2x2. These are poplar, but it's just what I could find locally, because since we don't have a big box store, I would have just gotten cheap burning strips or pine, but they didn't have any locally. So I mean, they have a Carter's, but they're so overpriced I don't even deal with that too much. The Carter's is okay, but the one here, they're not very friendly, so I don't like dealing with unfriendly people. I'd rather pay twice as much to deal with people that I like. That's just me. I try not to be a cheapskate some of the time. Couldn't really call me a cheapskate, I don't think, because yeah, I like making my own props, and that's not just to save money, it's because I like the satisfaction of being able to build this myself. And yeah, I might use cheaper parts, but in the long run, it probably costs me more than buying a professional prop. I could go buy Spirit Halloween stuff, but I don't care too much for the retail. The quality of the retail market in the haunt world, it's just crap. I mean, they may look cool at first, but they only last maybe 1 or 2 years and then they're junk. So I can build stuff. I have props that I built that have lasted me 16 years. So anyway, so let's measure this off. I have to trim this again. Just a little bit off of this piece, which I really don't want to have to do, but it doesn't quite fit. So the top I'll have to trim. You know what I'll do? I'll go ahead and do the sides before I trim this piece. So we'll set this aside. Don't need the top right now. So what I do need is a tape measure, which I have here. We're going to measure this off. So this will be the front. And we have almost exactly 2 feet there. But the front, I want to cover the sides. I'm just going to butt these up. I could 45 them, but for a box, I really want it to look pretty rough because it's just a box. So I don't want it to look perfect. So we're just going to butt them up to one another. So this one will actually be the distance of this, the actual length of this. So this one I could just go ahead and make 2 feet. So we're going to cut these at 2 feet for the sides, the top and the bottom of these sides. This one should be about the same. Okay. Yeah, it's not perfect, and I don't know that I even want it to be perfect. So 20, I mean, it'd be nice, but 20 3/4. Preferably not your finger. And if it doesn't fit, then you go back and you just trim a hair off of it. And to do that, you just put your blade down, push your piece up to the blade, put a little pressure on it, lift your blade up. So now we're going to put these 2 sides together. I cut these, they just fit, just barely, just right. And so I'm going to make sure that the front piece covers the back piece so that you don't want it to look like this, because then you see that seam. Same reason why we didn't do that up here, because you wouldn't want to see that cut edge and that seam. You want it covered. So like at the top, because this is the front, you're being looking front onto it this way, so you won't see that. It helps, it makes it look better. It's not, like I said, in the dark, with the Halloween prop, it's not all that imperative. You know, it doesn't have to look perfect, and sometimes you don't want things to look perfect because you want it that creep factor. All right, we're gonna paint these things. Well, first off, I did get this trim for the Kandy Box all put together, and what I ended up doing with these is just putting screws in these ends here, running it through. So this is one piece and can just be attached to the box with one screw on either side to hold it in place. This is not structural or anything. It's just to trim it out. So it doesn't have to be all that secure. We're gonna just, I based it with a coat of latex paint, just latex house paint. Any old paint, and that's just to give it a base so that the spray paint doesn't soak up into it. So just a regular old latex house paint I based it with and let it dry overnight. And now I'm just gonna spray it with I got some neon pink, just Walmart spray paint, whatever they have there, just so I can give this box some cool UV color. Kind of cool. Covers your whole face. So because I based that, this should adhere to it better than just soaking through the. Now I've got these other pieces. Let's see, we'll take them off here that were hanging to dry. They should be pretty well dry. Right top. Okay, so this one will go here. Top. Let's see how Kandy feels about it. I think she likes it. Let's see if she'll fit in there with the lid on. Oh yeah, the lid fits down, perfect. Look at that. Okay, so we have the box. I'm gonna 3D print some blue stars to go on the sides. And there'll be like a UV glow in the dark 3D print filament. And then I'll glue those on or maybe screw them. I have some 3D print attachments that you melt into the print and then you can put a screw into it. Maybe I'll do that. Haven't even tried that yet. So I gotta hinge this to where it'll pop up. So when she comes up, make sure she's missing everything. Her nose wants to just barely touch that. I think if I get that head secured under the pipe, it'll be alright. So when it comes up, the lid should come up with it. So it should comes up. Okay, I know I keep skipping ahead, but I got the trim on the box, as you see, all the way around. And the lid, I'm just now attaching the lid portion of the box. Just another 2-foot square piece that I'd cut. I had it sitting on the side over there, but I'm putting hinges on it back here. I'm just putting a hinge through the PVC and a hinge into the lid. I put it on with wood screws, but now I'm going to attach it more securely with machine screws. So that's where I'm at right now. We're just tightening up some of the screws. Didn't think about turning the camera on until just now. It'd be nice if I had a second hand. Maybe that's what I need to do, is make myself a third hand. And this way, make sure you go in the right direction. And I'm just using number 6, like 2-inch number 6s with some nylon locking nuts and some flat washers. Hold those on more secure than with the wood screw. A wood screw might pull through the wood, so we're just gonna, that's all I'm doing right now. I'm taking out the screws I had in there and putting in the new screws. All right, sorry, so I jumped ahead on you again. I went ahead and mounted a wiper motor in here. You could use a Deere motor. I tried that, but it didn't have enough strength to turn the crank. So we're working on the crank, which will be just a piece of PVC, a couple pieces of PVC. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't measure it. I just kind of held it out here. It's probably 12 inches long here on this part, and for the hand, you just use your hand to see what fits comfortable and that works. So that's probably, I don't know, 5-6 inches total inside the fittings. And then I'm just going to take a PVC cap. I drilled a hole in it, okay, and I tapped it. I don't know if you can see the threads in it, to M8. And I have an M8 tap somewhere. But anyway, you can just tap it by hand. You just turn it, it's PVC. If this doesn't hold, I'm going to have to use a iron pipe fitting, iron pipe plug or whatever, or cap. and then thread that. But it should hold. I'll put some thread locker on there if I can find some. I know I have some somewhere. But anyway, that threads right onto that. And then this one is a 90-degree street elbow. So this will already, this is like the size of the pipe, so it'll fit in a fitting. So we're going to use the street elbow. Put that in there. We'll put a screw through that to hold that in place. Maybe. Might not need it, but I think so. Okay. And I'm either going to have to put thread locker or epoxy to hold that on there. Either one will work, because it's not much. It's not much weight to turn, so shouldn't be a problem. But anyway, I'm going to take the box off to show you how that comes off, to show you the motor, and I have to do that anyway to wire the motor. You can either just unthread it this way from the motor shaft. See how nice that is? I'll set that aside, and then all I have on this is a couple of screws, and then I can show you how I have it mounted. So there's, come on, there's a screw here and a screw here that holds it to my PVC frame that it's attached to, and then there's a screw here and a screw here that holds these two sides tight together. It's not absolutely necessary, but it closes the gap on your side. So I'm going to take those 4 screws out, and then I should be able to pull this whole piece off. And there we go. We've got the motor mounted there. I'm going to have to put a motor controller so that I can wire it. This is just a cheap Amazon wiper motor. This is not, typically I'll buy the fry prop ones because they're easier to wire, because they're set up to be wired with the controller, either fry props or purgatory props or whatever. But so this is pretty simple. There's your ground. You're going to have 2 wires coming to it. We'll figure out how to wire it once I get power to it. All right. All right. So, okay, I went and dug around, found myself a power supply for my wiper motor. This is a 10 amp, which is overkill, but 5 is usually what you would use with the Myuu wiper, but more amperage doesn't hurt anything. That's just how much it can take as far as draw goes. I like to buy the 10 amps. It just gives me that much more security. And all I'm doing here is I'm going to test to see that this wiper motor is wired the same way as some of the other ones, because some wiper motors have got some funky wiring. I'm gonna go ahead and put the black wire in. Oh, I thought that had a hole you could feed it in. It does. Look there. Okay. Probably can't see what I'm doing, but there's the negative, and then let me just hold this up, see if it spins the positive. And it does not. See what other one. Well, the green wire does. That's okay. So I'm just testing it by touching the wires. I know this is negative because it's grounded to it, so that's your ground. And then all you need is your power. So I'm touching the yellow wire. It's going real fast. So that's your fast speed. I don't know if you can see both sides of this. Probably not. Doesn't matter. And then, but this green wire at the bottom is your slow speed, because it's going real slow. Now the red is not doing anything, and the white is probably a park, so it doesn't do anything. You'd have to wire 2 together. So we're going to wire black to black and red to green on this motor. So what I can do here is just snip the wires off where it connects into this module here, and then connect them together that way. I think that would be easiest. Right? That's what we're going to do. So we're going to feed this. onto the solder. And what did I say? Red goes to the green. Oh no, this wire is a little thicker. Okay, there we go. Good thing these have heat shrink built right into them, so but one end is smaller than the other for some reason. I don't get it, but that's okay. Can't really see that, but you're feeding the two wires in until they connect each other, and then we just heat it until it melts. Doesn't take long. Put some heat on it, and you melt the heat shrinks and the solder. When you see the solder start to melt, then you know you're good. You try not to overheat it. There it goes. You can see the solder spread up into the wire. Done. Alright. And we'll do the other side. There it goes. Okay. Stop. And that should be that. Now I have two extended wires with the barrel jack on the end. So if I wish to plug this in, it should go ahead and spin. Let's plug it in and see if it spins. There she goes. Off. Alright, there's our threaded cap again. I really should try to find, before I get that threaded, I want to see if I can locate but here's the thread locker. The red is the permanent in the red bottle. This is Pneumatics thread locker red, high strength, 27-100. Okay. So let's unscrew this. We're going to put some thread locker on this screw. Let me get a paper towel. I'm going to do a little trick here. Let's just feed that. Is that going to work? Yeah, that'll work. And let's hold it this way. It might help if we take the cap off. I don't know if I want to hold it that way. Because I'm worried that if I hold it that way. Okay. And then we're just going to thread that on. Hopefully that will go. Okay. And since I put that paper towel on where it's got a seam, actually, let me put a little inside too. I don't know if that's going to help any, but we're going to do it anyway. Put that on there. See that little trick? And I didn't get anything on there. There's the first. It must be 4 o'clock. 4:20. Holy crap, my truck started. That's why it's that late. All right, and then we'll stick this in here and we'll give it a shot. We'll just see if it spins it. Now we'll plug it in, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, ooh. That's not a bad rate of speed, although it's going backwards. I mean, I could slow it down. I don't know. I gotta put a speed controller on it to slow it down, which I can do. What do you think? I don't know. I'm gonna ask my sister what she thinks. That's as slow as I can get this motor to go without putting a speed controller on it. But I can easily put a speed controller on it, which I think I'm going to do. And it's going the wrong direction, so I just need to flip the wires around and it'll go the other way. I want it to go clockwise because I'm not left-handed. Anyway. Okay, so next project or part of this, what I'm doing here is trying to get the controller all figured up. I have a Peekaboo Plus controller from Fright Props. Okay, and I'm just now trying to get it wired. I have it wired to the inputs, power in. Instead of using the barrel jack, I'm using the power in connections because I'm using a 10 amp power supply. The barrel jack can handle up to a 5 amp power supply, so I could probably use the 10 amp in there as long as I don't draw more than 5 amps, which I doubt I will, but just for safety's sake, I'm going ahead and connected my 10 amp to the power inputs. So because I am using a little speaker, it's just a little 50 watt speaker. This has a 30 amp. Is it 30 amp? I guess a 30 watt amp built into this controller. It also has 2 minutes of sound that you can record, that you can put into this controller without having to have an SD card or anything. It has its own internal memory for that, which I have already recorded a couple of scare sounds, an ambient sound and a scare sound. I don't know if I can get it to work yet. I haven't figured that completely out. And then this one here is my speaker out. This other connection I have on here is just my 2 speaker wires going to that little speaker. There. Okay, so far that's all I've wired up. Next I need to figure out how to wire up the fog machine, the wiper motor for the crank, which crank I have on here now, and I painted it fluorescent green, just PVC. Basically I screwed the wiper motor to the inside of this. I don't think you can see that, but to the inside of that box I've bolted the wiper motor through it. The little drive bolt is M8. I took this piece of PVC cap that's where it connects back there. Took a PVC cap, this is 1/2 inch pipe, and just drilled it out and tapped it with M8 threads. And then I just screwed it onto the drive so that it direct drives that whole thing, and this thing just spins. Now, to program the action of it, I have this controller and I need to figure out the wiring of it, and I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I have nothing connected to the relay. Well, I do have one thing connected to the relays. That connection is, I don't know if you can see. Okay, so relay number 2 is my fog machine. So I took this fog machine. I just bought a cheap fog machine that has a push button, and there is a tutorial on Fright Props website on how to do this. But I set this up to where this controller will turn the fog on when I want it to. So whenever I decide to program it for when it to come on, it'll come on. It also has a LED lights on it that I will leave on all the time, because with the lid closed on this box, you don't really see much of it. You don't see it. So what's going to happen is it'll go through its ambient music, and then the PIR sensor, the motion sensor, will be about 25 feet away. There's a 25-foot cord. I'm going to put it extended out so that it triggers when people are walking in before they get to this prop. And that trigger will turn on the scare sound, which you'll see here after I get all this program, is basically pop goes the Weasel, and a kind of a scary version of it. And at the end of it, there's a scream where she pops up. She'll pop up. You can't see her face. And she'll like do a laughing scream sort of thing. And when she pops up, the lid will open, and then you will see those lights, strobe lights that are on this fog machine. All right, so all of that has to be programmed into here. So we got to program the wiper motor, the fog machine, and the pneumatic cylinder that makes her pop up. So the air cylinder here. So all those things have to be plugged into this and programmed. So let's think about this. The first thing we wanted to do is when it triggers, it's going to turn that sound, that scare sound, which is already programmed, and then the crank needs to start to move. The crank will move along with the sound. So we need to, our first trigger, our first animation will be the wiper motor. So we need to plug in the wiper motor into relay number 1. We already have the fog machine on 2 because I knew I wanted that to come on after the wiper motor. So anyway, I already have a length of wire with a little waggle connector on it. So I just need to let's route that the same way as that. This plugs onto, I have a speed controller inside of here. So along with the wiper motor that is screwed there, there's a little speed controller here. It's just a PWM pulse width modulator, and it just has a dial on it on this side. So you bring your power to this side, and then your power out goes to your wiper motor, and then you can just dial up or down how fast you want it to move. So that'll determine how fast this crank spins. I'll probably have it set pretty slow. Here's a closer look at the crank. It's just 1/2-inch PVC. This coupler is what I was talking about that I tapped with an M8 tap because the drive bolt from the wiper motor comes through here, and it just bolted through. Okay, so I have to connect the negative, which came loose somehow, to right in here, right there. Yeah, right there. So I'll do that. Here we go. Okay, so there's our negative to that. So basically, we bring power off the 12 volt from the controller, which is why I have this other waggle connector. Bring it over to one of the relays. So you just stick you just stick your wires in the different slots. The levers pop up like that, and then you stick your wire in and you snap it down. And this will hold. Actually, this is a 5. This will hold 5 wires. So I don't have a 4-way. All right. So my power is this one. This is my main red power. So that'll go into here from this. All right, that goes into one slot. And the power from that continues on to the peekaboo controller. So I'll put that wire in. So now I have 2 wires in here. Power in to the waggle connector. I'm coming out of that connector over to power in on the controller. Now I can, these other 3 levers, I can bring over to the other props, or bring over to the relays. So from here, I just need a wire to go from here to this relay, to the common on the relay. Put one in the waggle connector. They make different, cheaper brands, but the waggles I think are the most reliable. Okay, so then the red on this will go to your common on whatever your next relay is going to be. So relay number 1 is going to be the wiper motor. So we'll plug that into the common on that relay. We already have something wired into 2. So the red, which is your power, will go to the common. And then the other, normally closed means circuit is always on, which would mean it would be wiper motor be always running until it triggers and it would stop off. But the normally open, NO over here, means the circuit's open or not connected together, so there's no power going through the circuit when it's normally open. So we're going to connect the other wire from the wiper motor to the normally open. Then when it triggers, the relay is basically a switch. It just electronically turns that switch on. So it's like, when I trigger it, it's just like flipping a switch and then the motor's coming on. So that's why we're going to the normally open, so that it's not constantly running. Now this, I could just go straight to the controller instead of this connector, which I might just do that. Take that out of that waggle. And then that'll go to the normally open side over here. So when it triggers, it sends power through that red wire to the wiper motor. And the black wire is our negative. We are just going to jumper onto this other waggle. So I don't need this waggle. Again, I could just go to this 5-way, which I had previously put on. It's just another 5-way waggle to the negative side of my power supply. So all my negatives can just go ahead and jumper straight to that power supply. That's the intention there. There. So that should be wired up for the wiper motor. So whenever I decide to trigger number 1, the wiper motor will come on. And then I'll press it again, and then the wiper motor will shut off when I record the animation. So we'll go through that when I go to program it, if I get that far, before having to go to work. Okay, that's wired up. The next thing to wire will be, come on, set these waggles aside before I spill them all over the floor. Oops. Okay, next thing to wire, I gotta get ahead of myself, is the pneumatic cylinder. Now that is over here. It's already hooked up to the air compressor and crap, so might just disconnect that and bring it over. Anyway, I got a little bitty 3-gallon air compressor that I'm using just to test stuff with. That's all I have here. My house, I have a couple of 60s and a 20 and a bunch of stuff. Well, come on. Well, I don't need that. I'll just pull it apart that way. Okay, so get all this crap out of the way. Let's move this compressor back. Okay. So here, we went through this earlier on another video, but here I have a air solenoid, or pneumatic solenoid valve that will hook to the pneumatic cylinder. So, and these wires, this again is just a switch. It's a switch that lets air flow through it. So these two wires, they're just, it's DC. This is 12 volt DC, so it doesn't matter which goes to positive or negative. So, but we have a regulator that I can regulate down the amount of air. That way I don't have her jumping up too hard and flying through the roof. And that goes to your line in, your input to your solenoid valve. And then out of your solenoid valve, you have two lines. One to make the solenoid, or the pneumatic cylinder, which is here, pop up, to make her pop up and push the door open. And then the other one will release the air through these little exhausts. And it'll it'll push air back through the top and make that cylinder go down. That's what it does. And these little things are exhausts. They have little valves on top that you can turn, and that will control the speed at which it pops up or down. So we're going to wire that up to the next relay. So one of these is going to be power, and one of them is going to be negative on these two wires. It doesn't matter which one on this. So they're already stripped. I shouldn't have to strip those. And then we wire that one up to the next. I'll put it on number 3. There's a total of 4 relays built into this prop controller. Come on over here. So that's going to go into output 3. So the common is here. We want our power to go to that one. And then normally open is here. Again, normally open means it's in the off position, or it's not turned on at the time because the circuit is open or broken. So you want the red wire to go to the common. So this, where'd it go? Cylinder. One of the wires is going to the common, so we're gonna just jumper that in. Oh. We're gonna plug this in the common. And like I said before, the other wire is a negative. So that'll be just jumpered into that other WAGO negative connector. So, common. No, this one goes in the normally closed. Sorry about that. That goes to normally closed because that's giving power to the cylinder. And then from this other WAGO or connector, we can either. The reason I use these WAGOs is you can't fit a bunch of wires in these. You can just go into these connections if you can fit all your wires in there, but you can't. You can't put a whole bunch of wires into that. But you could jump your power off of this one over to this one. But trying to get them in there to stay is a pain in the butt. So I'm just going to go to this WAGO. I'm going to cut another wire. This is going to be a big jumbled mess, but it'll all get tied up and cleaned up after the fact. So we need another red wire. Alright, that's going to go into my WAGO, however you pronounce it. You see that? So that goes into the red. That's your power, your positive. And then the other side's going to go into that common. Okay. Where's number 3? So we have one in the normally open already. That goes to the cylinder. We're going to put this one in the common. That's your power. On this is your power. You could make that a negative, but and then the other wire from that solenoid is going to be the negative since the other one was the positive. And we're just going to put that into that negative WAGO connector if it'll stay. It's a very small wire, so I'm hoping that it crimps down good enough. Sometimes these don't handle tiny wires so great. Like that, pulled loose. So what I'm going to do is crimp this longer, or not crimp it, strip it longer, bend it over a little bit and twist it. Hopefully that'll work. You could just solder it. I could do that. That might make a better connection. But we're going to try this for now. Push that in there so it's got both sides in there. And that makes a little bit stronger connection. I don't know if you saw what I did there. But, okay. So, now we have both the air cylinder and the wiper motor and also the fog machine all plugged in, all wired up to the controller. Now we just need to program the animation. So I'm going to plug this fog machine in and get it warmed up, because it takes a while to warm up the fog machine. Okay, try reprogramming that. The ambient track's on. Okay, so we want to hit record. We want the wiper motor to come on. Pause for about 10 seconds. Save. That should save that animation. I don't have the pneumatic cylinder hooked up yet, so we didn't get to see that pop up. I'll finish that later. I got to go to work, so that's it for today.